Hello BookTube! Welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and this video is going to be about Echo by Pam Muñoz Ryan. I picked up this book because it's one of the Florida Sunshine State Young Reader Award finalists for the 2016-2017 school year, and since I plan to read all of the books, I thought I would get a head start and read a few of them during the summer. And I'm so glad that I read this one. It was absolutely beautiful. To tell you a little bit about it, the story follows three different children in three parts of the world throughout Hitler's rise to power in the 1930s and the 1940s. In the first part, we meet Friedrich, who a lot of people would accuse of being very eccentric. His neighbors perceive that he has a lot of strange behaviors. He hears music in his head, and so sometimes he will be walking along and he'll start conducting music. And of course, the people around him don't understand that, and they just think he's strange. He also has a very large birthmark on his face, and he finds out during the story that as an infant he had a seizure. So his older sister is part of the Hitler Youth, and she is telling him that because he has all of these imperfections, he needs to volunteer for sterilization. She's worried that if he doesn't, she will be frowned upon in the Hitler Youth, and she doesn't want anything to stop her getting promoted. Well, of course, their father wants nothing to do with that. He disagrees that that should happen with Friedrich. So that's kind of how Friedrich's story starts out. One day he hears music and he finds a harmonica, and it turns out, as you're going to go through the story, it's kind of a magical harmonica. And so there's a lot more to his story, but the harmonica is what carries us into the next setting, which is 1935, 2 years later. And there we meet Mike and his younger brother Frankie, and they are living in an orphanage. Now Mike plays the piano, and her grandmother had left them in that orphanage because there was a piano and she wanted Mike to be able to play. And then she had to go into, I guess, a nursing home situation, and then later passed away. So their parents, grandparents, and everyone have passed on, and so they truly are orphans. And Mike is a musical prodigy, so through his music, that carries his story forward. Once we get through Mike's story, then we skip to part 3, and then it's December 1942, and we meet Maria Lopez, who is a young girl in California, and she's also interested in music. This is a time when there's racial segregation in schools. She is Hispanic, they have friends who are Japanese, and this is during the time when the Japanese are having to be sent to internment camps, and so there's a lot going on. Then we hear her part of the story. So then there's a segment at the end which ties all three of them together, and you see how everything is wrapped up, and it's just beautiful how it's all done. And the reason I enjoyed the audio so much is because of the music. You get to hear the actual music that is being played, and whoever played the harmonica in this audiobook was just amazing. And it's not just harmonica. There are other instruments as well. There is a solo at the end that almost brought me to tears. It's just a beautifully done audiobook. In fact, I believe it won an Audie Award this year in 2016. And the book Echo you may have heard of because it is one of the Newbery Honor books for 2016. So it's really a well done book, and I highly recommend it, whichever route you go, whether you read the print book or whether you listen to the audiobook. Now, if you can't get the audiobook and you end up reading it, at the beginning of each of the three main sections there is a song. And this one is in the beginning of part 2, which is Mike's section, and it's America the Beautiful. And I'm pretty sure that if you play harmonica, this is how music is written for the harmonica, and you would be able to take your harmonica and play this song. So that's really neat. But of course on the audio you get to hear the actual harmonica being played, and it's just beautiful. The part that fell a little flat for me was the fantasy element. Now, what I've told you about for the most part is historical fiction, but in the very, very beginning there is a fairy tale of sorts. There is a story of a boy, Otto, who I believe his story takes place 50 years before World War II. Playing hide and seek, runs into the forest, gets lost in the forest, falls asleep, and he's visited by 3 young women. Somehow they put themselves into this harmonica, and they say they'll help him find his way home if he will finish their story, and it goes on to tell their story. So this harmonica is actually like a message from these 3 these three princesses. So I know that's confusing. You just have to read the book to get the whole story. But that it starts out really great, and you think it's really going to be a fantasy book. But that's really the only fantasy that there is. And then the harmonica is woven throughout the stories, and then at the very end you see what Otto did to get this whole story going, and it's really well done. I enjoyed it a lot, but I thought that the fantasy aspect could have been a little bigger. That was really a very small part of the story, and I think this is plugged as a fantasy story. But really, you could take all of that out and still have a very nice historical fiction book about three young people who play music, and you would still have a great book. So that's not really a complaint, but if I had to pick something out that I thought was lacking, it's the fantasy element of it. But I still recommend the book. I thought it was fabulous, and I really, really enjoyed reading it. So I would recommend that you pick this up, or that you pick up the audio, or download the audio, or however you listen to audio. You can only do one or the other. Go for the audio. The music is just brilliant. It's so well done. Just beautiful. So I guess that's all I have for this video. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, like Echo, and God bless you.